You are listening to the Ditch the Budget podcast, and I am your host, Heidi Rumor. I'm a wife, a mom of 2 young boys, and I've spent the last 17 years in financial services as a licensed financial planner, insurance specialist, and debt crusher. My goal is to show you that there's more to life than counting calories and paying bills, and that you truly can get out of debt and build wealth without the restrictive budgets and complicated spreadsheets. So if you're ready to reduce your financial stress and truly live the life of your dreams, then tune in and let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of the Ditch the Budget podcast. Hi, everybody. When I'm working with my clients' finances, one of the things that comes up is there's some past money mistakes or past money trauma that they've gone through in some way. So a trauma could be something like, as a kid, maybe they lost their home. They had to move because they got evicted from their home, or there wasn't any food to eat, or there weren't any Christmas presents around the tree, that sort of thing. So those are like traumatic experiences that happen around finances and around money. And then there's also experiences like maybe you invested money in a certain area and it blew up in your face, or maybe you lent money to a friend and you never got it back again. So that trust is broken, that relationship is broken. Maybe a spouse was lying to you about finances, right? And it wasn't as rosy of a picture once you found out. So whatever that traumatic experience is or was for you, my suggestions for my clients are, I put them through kind of a process when it comes to this, but essentially one of the first things that we do is we identify it, right? So we try to figure out how their money mindset plays a role in some of those past trauma. And then I give them some tips and tricks to go forward. But one of the most impactful things that my clients have told me when working with them and healing some of this stuff is to write a forgiveness letter. So it's really simple. You just essentially write a letter to yourself, write a letter to that person that wronged you, write a letter to, your parents, write a letter to that friend that you lent money to, whoever is a part of that story for you. Just write them a letter and forgive them. Release yourself and release them of that burden, because it's something that happened in the past. Unless it's something that's continuing to happen going forward, which I'll talk about in a second. But if it's an event that happened in the past, you really do need to let it go. Unless you can return it or somehow recoup that money in some way, it's better to just try to release it and get rid of that, that baggage, so to speak. So writing this forgiveness letter is something that's very therapeutic, very healing. And I don't actually recommend you give it to the person or you send it to them. I just recommend just getting it out, reading it, feeling the emotions, feeling what it feels like, and then just imagine what it would feel like to release that, shame, embarrassment, those feelings of abandonment, or whatever the case may be, whatever that feeling is that experience is invoking, is really forgive it and then acknowledge it and honor that feeling, because all of those experiences have made you who you are, and they are really important experiences to go through, sometimes as crappy as they are. So I've dealt with couples where there's been some major money infidelity, I guess we'll call it, where, infidelity in terms of finances. So lying about money, saying that they're paying bills and they're not paying bills, that sort of thing. And we've come out on the other side, a much stronger, healthier relationship once we do some of that healing. So writing that letter and really acknowledging those feelings, I call it a forgiveness letter. And it's something that it doesn't just heal it the first time you do it. Sometimes you have to write multiple letters. Sometimes you're even afraid, even if nobody's going to see it, you're afraid to even put the words down on paper. Or there's resistance even to that exercise. So I would really encourage you, if you are somebody that has had some past money trauma, you need to heal from it in order to move on. Because unfortunately, if you're stuck in that in that trauma, it might actually be why your finances aren't where you want them to be today, because you're giving that experience so much power over your life and how you're conducting yourself day to day. If you just release it, if you acknowledge it, and even, acknowledge the role that you played in that, right? So for example, if it was a spouse that was not paying bills, got you into a really bad situation, they were lying to you saying that the bills were paid, what role did you play in that? Did you take a back seat when it came to finances? Did you put too much pressure on that person to really be in control of all of that when maybe they didn't have the skill set or the want or basically the knowledge and support in order to fulfill that role that they're playing? So it's not to victim shame or anything like that, but it is to take a little bit of responsibility and acknowledge that responsibility and put it down on a piece of paper. And then I recommend lighting it on fire. Like, there's something really ceremonious about doing that. Lighting it on fire, crumpling it up and throwing it away doesn't have the same emotion, in my opinion anyways. Go outside, go somewhere safe, put it in a stainless steel bucket, light it on fire. Feel that, that energy. I've done this numerous times, and I've actually put a couple of essential oils on it, which probably, I don't know if that makes it more flammable or not, but I'm making sure everything is safe just so I can kind of breathe in that energy and just know that I'm releasing it. Oftentimes, this is a big block for a lot of people, and especially a lot of couples that come to me when I'm working with them. If there's been some money trauma within the relationship, that is a really, really, really good way to release that as much as possible. And just know that if that's in the past, it's an experience you don't need to forget. You don't necessarily need to never talk about it again, and it's, bury it under a rug. But what I am saying is acknowledge the feeling, acknowledge the trauma, but let it go, because the last thing you want is for that to be really, driving you in your behavior going forward. So unless you can return it, unless you can somehow recoup that money, then I would say definitely just try really hard to repair the relationship. And that first step is really to forgive that person, whether or not you verbalize that to them or not. Just putting it down on paper, acknowledging how they made you feel, acknowledging what situation they put you in, and then also acknowledging the role you had to play, as small as it is. For some of us, we didn't play a role at all. But if you actually really stop and think, yeah, I never asked my spouse, for example, I never asked my spouse if they were comfortable paying the bills. I never asked them if I needed to make more money to help out with the bills, right? I just always assumed it was taken care of. So, figure out what small part or big part that you played in that, and forgive yourself, forgive your partner, forgive your parents, forgive your friend, your neighbor, whatever the case may be, and light it on fire and just really honor that. And sometimes you're going to have to do it a couple times, right? Sometimes you do it and you're like, okay, that felt good in the moment, but then you kind of go right back to those feelings of resentment and I can't even believe we declared bankruptcy and here I am. I just had a client who declared bankruptcy a few years ago, and they are, she's getting frustrated because now the markets are crazy and buying a home and they're having trouble and all of this stuff. So, it's taken a few of these letters to really release that and release her partner of some of that trauma that was invoked. So hopefully that was helpful. Forgiveness letters, they're really something special. Don't knock it till you try it. I definitely have found that they've helped for me, and they've also helped for a lot of clients as well. So hopefully that helps. I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know if you've ever done something like this, and I hope everybody has an awesome rest of your day.
If you found today's episode valuable, please take a screenshot, throw it up on your stories, tag me at Heidi Rumore, DM me on Instagram, find me on Facebook. I am here for all of the things, and I will see you next time on the next episode of Ditch the Budget.